An essay on the way.
Hello boys and girls, this is the MS Story and back with another part of my essay. And this time it's gonna be the conditions of the imperialism. So we'll get right to it. Now we've gone through some different causes, but what kind of conditions are there? What made it possible for the British to put such a huge amount of territory and people beneath them? Someone that might not think that they took that much territory, look at this map. Nearly all imperials in the world history has had one and the same advantage against their enemies or subjects. A overwhelming effectively military force. For example, Alexander the Great used his father's Philip II's military his father's new military to the perfection when he used the sarissa, a very long spear that made the Macedonians could attack the enemy before they reached the Macedonians. As more men could in the phalanx could attack the enemy at the same time when they came close, so close that the enemy could attack. That means they had a far more advanced military technology, and with a military genius in command, that gave a imperium that went way beyond what everybody imagined was possible to do. Another example is Rome. The Romans, no matter the time, the Kingdom of Rome, the Republic, or the Imperi, had some things that made them superior to everyone else in their time. 1. Rome's leading put enormous amounts of money on the army, which without a doubt gave them military power. Further, they were very eager to look around for new military gear and incorporate it into their own military power. And in this way, they could always be on the edge with military technology. Usually they faced enemies that did not have any armor or adequate protection by shields, due to the Romans had injured them with the pilum while they did. The legionaries were almost always far better in several areas. 1. Armament. If the enemy can't kill you, then you can still kill him. 2. Education. If you know more about war and tactics and strategy, then you dominate the battlefield. 3. Armament. Weaponry. If your weaponry is balanced to your other equipment, then you have an easier time on the battlefield. 4. Command. If you have a better commander with more education, you get more suitable strategies. 5. Discipline. More discipline gives more cohesion and teamwork, which increases your effectiveness. 6. Logistics. If you can be sure that your next meal is coming when it's supposed to, you can concentrate on what you're supposed to do. 7. An army marches upon its stomach is a very old and very true saying. Without adequate amounts and quality food, there is no army. Ask the Russians during the Finnish Winter War what they thought about that expression. So that means the legions were widely superior to every other warrior in their time. In the early 1800s, the most common weapon for the British troops were the Brown Bess, a musket with a fire rate of about 3 balls a minute at an effective range of 60 to 90 meters. Imagine then that the enemy often used bows and arrows, swords and so on. Or just didn't have the same training and strategic know-how, and so on. The pattern 1853 Enfield, as was their next weapon, gave the same fire rate but with a longer distance. As we already gone through, if you can reach the enemy without him reaching you, then you got an enormous advantage. The Schneider Enfield took over after the pattern and was a decisive factor, as it was a breech-loading rifle, meaning you put in a cartridge in a chamber from the back, so the soldier doesn't have to stand up and reload and then be vulnerable for firing. And it kicked up the fire rate to whole 10 shots a minute. So we can here see a trend that goes through the entire British Empire's military power, namely that they consistently uses the latest and the best they can get their hands on, precisely as the Roman legionary did. There's another interesting anecdote, note to make. 1860 to 1866. The New Haven Company made the Henry repeating rifle, the classic cowboy rifle in the USA. That means at the same time as the Schneider Enfield was used, there was another rifle that on paper was widely superior. The Henry takes 15 cartridges in the magazine, while the Schneider takes 1 shot at a time. So why the breech-loaded Schneider Enfield when the Henry was available? Let's make a thought experiment. Let's think that we are in a dark, dense, muddy jungle in Asia. Somewhere in the brush is the enemy. The slightest sound can compromise our position. We have 2 rifles, the Schneider Enfield and the Henry repeating rifle. Which do we take? The Schneider's simple mechanism makes it reliable. If you press the trigger, you can be sure about it goes bang. The Henry has more mechanism that can lock up. Above all, by mud and dirt and so on. The Schneider is silent when you load it. Stand up and take aim. The Henry rattles due to the cartridges in the tube magazine. And it can open and the cartridges fall out. And it makes it a very distinct rack sound when the repeater mechanism must be used in between every shot. Maybe the officers didn't like the idea of an American gun used in the British Army. Maybe it was too expensive. Maybe they thought it was too many disadvantages with the Henry. We will probably never know. So how could the British get so much more advanced weapons? They could do this because of a few reasons. 1. The old colonies gave plenty of economic gain and raw material for the newly born industry in England. 2. The colonies gave plenty of taxes to the crown, which was placed in the military power. 3. Inventors had help from the crown and private manufacturers to help create new inventions, machines, weaponry, and so on. 4. The steam machine had a huge breakthrough with multiple uses in areas for trains, shipping, mining, milling, and so on. The area seemed endless. Communication. 5. Communication, including the telegraph, better information exchange, brought about that inventions, weapons, designs, and so on spread between industrialized nations with greater ease. This gave the British a war material of high quality and high quantity. No matter if we talk about army, cavalry, artillery, or the navy. Quote, "Be fast as the wind, dense as the forest, move as the fire does when you do raids. Be unshakable as a mountain when you ground to halt. Let your plans be dark as the night. Move as a lightning bolt when you move forward." Sun Tzu, The Art of War, 500 before Christ, current China. One area that I consider to be directly causing for both the imperialism and the industrialism in equal amounts is just exactly communication, which also can be seen as a form of structure. So why is that so important? A new list. 1. Ships for transport of handle goods to the colonies, to and from the colonies. 2. Information orders to the military power in different colonies. 3. Transport of raw materials to manufactories. 4. Transport of products from manufacturers to the market. 5. News. 6. Information about the military situation in a certain colony at every time. Communication was therefore a cornerstone in both imperialism and industrialism, and seemed to be and worked on both aspects and was directly crucial to both. Without good transport lines, they could not have worked. Without good transport lines of raw material to the factories, no weapons, ammunition, gunpowder, uniforms, and so on. Without war material, no army. No army, no troop transports. No troop transports, no invasion. No invasion, no colony. No colony, no imperium. This chain can be broken at several places. And it's one of the fundamental principles of modern art of war. Look at the Germans' submarine wolf packs during the Second World War. Cut the supply lines and the army collapses. No tank, no matter how big the cannon, no matter how thick the armor, has any chance to succeed if it doesn't have any gas in the tank. An army marches upon its stomach. So we go on in the imperial in the imperial conditions. But we are gonna take a break here and go on for the next video, and I'll get back to you. Stay tuned. Bye bye.
Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe.